The rain had been falling since sunset, turning the long stretch of Arizona highway into a shining ribbon of black and silver. 17-year-old Jake Miller crouched on the shoulder of the road, his hoodie soaked through, hands trembling as he worked on the broken chain of his old motorcycle. Every few seconds, he wiped rain from his eyes, but it didn't help much. Some of that wetness wasn't rain at all. His phone lay on the asphalt beside him, screen cracked, battery blinking red. One unread message stared back at him from the hospital in Phoenix. Condition critical. Please come as soon as possible. Jake swallowed hard. His daughter Lily was only 4 years old. She'd been born when he was barely more than a kid himself, and her life had been a constant fight since then. Weak lungs, endless hospital visits, machines that beeped through the night. Jake worked any job he could find. Washing dishes, unloading trucks, fixing bikes for spare cash. That night, he was riding to the hospital after finishing a late shift, praying he wouldn't be too late. Then the bike gave out. Jake cursed softly, fingers numb as he tried to force the chain back into place with a bent wrench. He had no money for a tow. No family left to call. Just this bike, this road, and the clock racing against him. That's when he heard it. A low rumble, not one engine, but many. Jake looked up, heart pounding, as headlights cut through the rain. Motorcycles rolled in from both directions, surrounding him until the road seemed alive with chrome and leather. The engines shut off one by one, leaving an eerie silence broken only by the rain tapping against helmets. Hell's Angels. Jake recognized the patches instantly. His chest tightened. He stood slowly, hands visible, fear written all over his face. He'd heard the stories everyone had, about bikers, about trouble. This was the last thing he needed. One man stepped forward, tall, broad shoulders, gray beard soaked dark with rain. His eyes were sharp but calm. "What's the problem, kid?" the man asked. Jake's voice cracked before he could stop it. "My bike broke down. I'm trying to get to the hospital." The leader glanced at the bike, then back at Jake. "Hospital, huh?" Jake nodded, tears finally spilling over. He didn't bother hiding them. "My daughter is there. She's dying. I don't have money. I just need to fix this and go." For a moment, no one spoke. The rain kept falling. One of the bikers shifted his weight. Another crossed his arms. The leader's eyes moved to Jake's hands. Red, scraped, shaking, still gripping the wrench like it was the only thing keeping him upright. "You've been working on this yourself?" the man asked. "Yes, sir," Jake said quietly. "I'll fix it, I swear. Just, please don't take my bike." Something changed then. The leader slowly removed his gloves and handed them to another biker. "Relax," he said. "No one's taking anything." He crouched beside the bike, inspecting the chain. Then he looked up at Jake. "Finish the repair," the man said firmly. "You're not doing this alone." Jake didn't understand yet, but the night was about to change his life. Jake watched in disbelief as the man who seemed to lead the group knelt beside his broken motorcycle. Rain soaked through leather jackets, but no one complained. One biker pulled a flashlight from his saddlebag. Another handed over proper tools. Someone else blocked the road with his bike, its headlights forming a shield against passing traffic. "Take a breath, kid," the leader said calmly. "You rush this, you'll mess it up." Jake nodded, wiping his face with his sleeve. His hands still shook, but now it wasn't just fear, it was shock. These men, who moments ago terrified him, were helping him like family. He worked carefully, guided by quiet advice from the bikers around him. They didn't crowd him. They didn't rush him. They watched, steady and patient. When the chain finally snapped back into place, Jake tightened the last bolt and leaned back, exhausted. He kicked the starter once. Nothing. His heart dropped. He tried again. The engine roared to life. Jake let out a broken laugh, half sob, half relief. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the rain. The leader stood and nodded once. "Where's the hospital?" "Phoenix Children's," Jake answered. The man reached for a radio clipped to his jacket. "You're riding, but you're not riding alone." Within minutes, engines began to thunder in the distance. Headlights appeared on the highway, one after another, stretching farther than Jake could see. Bikes poured in from exits, side roads, and gas stations. The sound grew louder, heavier, like the road itself was breathing. Jake stared as 120 Hell's Angels filled the highway. The leader walked back to him. "You stay in the middle. Don't speed. Don't panic. We'll clear the way." They rode fast but controlled. Cars pulled aside as the massive formation moved through the storm. Red lights turned green. Traffic slowed, then stopped. Jake felt protected, surrounded by roaring engines and steady riders who never let him fall behind. For the first time that night, he felt hope. At the hospital, the bikes lined the street like a wall of steel. Nurses rushed out with a stretcher the moment Jake arrived. He jumped off the bike, nearly collapsing as they ran Lily inside. He didn't even notice the rain anymore. The leader placed a hand on Jake's shoulder. "You made it." Hours later, as dawn broke, a doctor stepped into the waiting room. "Your daughter is stable," she said gently. "We caught it in time." Jake broke down completely. When he looked up, the hallway was empty. The bikers were gone. Weeks later, Lily smiled from her hospital bed, holding a small toy motorcycle someone had left behind. Jake never learned all their names. He never needed to, because that night taught him something he would carry forever. Family isn't always who you're born with. Sometimes it's who shows up when the road breaks beneath you. Jake spent most days at the hospital, sleeping in a chair beside Lily's bed, learning the rhythm of her breathing again. The machines were quieter now. The doctors spoke with more confidence. Every smile Lily gave him felt like a gift he hadn't earned but promised never to waste. One afternoon, a nurse handed Jake an envelope. "These were left at the front desk," she said. "No name." Inside was a folded card and a stack of cash, more money than Jake had ever held at once. The card had only one line written in thick black ink. "For Lily. Pass it on." Jake sat there for a long time, staring at the words. He didn't cry this time. He felt something steadier settle in his chest, responsibility. Months passed. Lily grew stronger. Jake finished school through night classes and took a job at a small motorcycle repair shop in Tucson. He worked hard, stayed late, learned fast. The owner noticed. "You treat every bike like it matters," he said once. Jake smiled. "Because it does." On weekends, Jake volunteered. Sometimes it was fixing bikes for people who couldn't afford repairs. Other times it was delivering groceries, helping stranded drivers, or just listening to people who needed to talk. He never told the full story. He didn't need to. He just showed up. One evening, while closing the shop, Jake heard a familiar sound. Deep, steady engines rolling in together. He stepped outside and froze. A small group of bikers pulled into the lot. Leather jackets. Familiar patches. Hell's Angels. The same leader removed his helmet and smiled slightly. "Looks like you kept riding," he said. Jake swallowed. "I did. Because of you." The man shook his head. "Because of you. You didn't quit that night. You fixed your bike. You fought for your kid." He glanced at the shop sign. "We need a tune-up before a charity ride. Thought we'd support a man who understands family." They talked while Jake worked. About roads traveled, mistakes made, kids grown up too fast. Before leaving, the leader looked at Lily's drawing taped to the wall behind the counter. "She's strong," he said. "So are you," Jake replied. The man mounted his bike, then paused. "Remember something, kid. Tough doesn't mean heartless, and kindness doesn't mean weak." Years later, Jake would open his own garage. On the wall hung a simple sign. "If you're broken, we fix you. If you're hurting, we help." And every time rain hit the highway at night, Jake remembered that moment on the roadside, when strangers became family, and a dying hope was escorted home by roaring engines and quiet honor. The small garage he once dreamed about was now real. Miller and Daughter Cycles, painted in white letters on a brick building near the edge of town. Lily, now 9, sat on a stool in the corner most afternoons, coloring bikes and handing her father rags like she was part of the crew. Her laugh filled the space where fear once lived. Jake never forgot the road that saved them. Every year, on the same stormy week in late fall, Jake closed the shop early and rode out to that stretch of highway in Arizona. He never told Lily why. He just said it was a place where life changed. This year, the rain came again. Jake parked his bike on the shoulder and stood quietly, listening to the wind, the distant sound of tires, the memory of engines that once surrounded him. He thought about the choices he could have made: anger, bitterness, giving up. Instead, he chose to build something steady. Headlights appeared. Jake turned, heart thumping, not with fear, but recognition. A line of motorcycles rolled in, fewer than before, but unmistakable. Leather jackets, familiar patches. The leader stepped off his bike, older now, slower, but his eyes were the same. "Figured you'd be here," the man said. Jake smiled. "I come every year." They stood together as rain misted the road. No long speeches, just understanding. "You kept your promise," the leader said finally. Jake nodded. "I passed it on." The man reached into his vest and handed Jake a small metal badge, not a patch, not a symbol of membership. Just a simple engraving. "Honor the road. Protect the weak. This doesn't make you one of us," the leader said. "You already were something else." They talked about Lily, about the garage, about kids growing up faster than they should. When it was time to leave, engines roared, but softer now, respectful. As the bikes disappeared into the rain, Jake felt something close, not an ending, but peace. That night, Lily asked him why he looked thoughtful. Did something bad happen there once? She asked. Jake knelt to her level. Something hard happened, and something good followed. She nodded seriously. "Like when I got sick, and then got better." "Yes," Jake said, smiling. "Exactly like that." He hung the badge on the garage wall the next morning, not as decoration, but as a reminder. Because stories aren't about who looks strong. They're about who shows up, who helps, who rides into the storm when it would be easier to keep going. And every time someone broke down outside Miller and Daughter Cycles, Jake never asked many questions. He just grabbed his tools, and showed up.